Hi, and welcome to the Thinking Out Loud podcast, a show with meaningful conversations in English with non-native speakers. My name is Jędrek.
My name is Masha.
And we are two English teachers who,
as you may remember, ran a summer school.
Right.
Summer, not a school. It's not a school. It's not a course. It's a very no pressure
project.
Wine and cheese.
Yes.
Project. Okay.
It's nice that you mentioned wine and cheese and potentially also bread, because these are the symbols of France. And France is pretty much all over the July's edition of our project, because
it's all over the news
that we are going to ask. All over the news, yeah. But the questions, France is all over the news lately, it's true. And the 14 Juillet is coming, the 14th of July, the Independence Day, known also as the Bastille Day. So cars will burn again.
Oh,
that's pretty. That's one thing that is sure. All right. But jokes aside, France is somehow in our project, present in our project, because the questions are based, as you might already know, on the French high school final exam, the so-called bac. It's in Poland we call it matura. What's the name in Ukraine for the final high school exam?
We have final school exam, but we don't have philosophy.
Okay, no. But what's the name of this exam?
The name is unified exam.
Oh, what kind of? Come on! But I know that in the United States the equivalent is SAT. In Germany it's Abitur, or I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. And so like each school system has.
We have an abbreviation. It's called ZNO.
Oh, there you go. Come on, it sounds nice. I mean, at least it has a character.
I need to remember what this stands for. Okay, next episode.
But anyway, I wanted to talk about it because the project somehow is not like super popular, to say the least. So, guys, before we introduce our guest today and we get into a totally different conversation, I just wanted to remind you that we are starting on Monday, the 17th of July at 7 p.m. So it's in the evening. You're ready after work, hopefully. And if you have hopefully. I mean, people are.
You mean I hope you have work? Or what?
I mean, or either that you have work or that you've already finished. Because Masha, if you don't know, 7 p.m. is sometimes when people finish their job, or they sometimes may work even longer hours.
I heard in Europe it's 9 to 5.
9 to 5 in what kind
not
of
in
Europe?
Poland. Not in Poland.
Not in Poland,
Definitely not in Ukraine.
Yeah, the working hours I remember from Warsaw were really crazy. Like, staying in the office till 8 p.m. was like, nothing special.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wasn't the norm, but it was nothing special, right?
Corporate
and I
world.
think that I have a feeling we talked about this on our show,
Pace of
maybe
Life.
with Pace of Life with David. Exactly. I say hi to David once again. So yeah, that's. But anyway, guys, 7 p.m. Monday 17th. Look at this. Number 7 is I think easy to remember. And I've got one remark that is quite important, because you may have noticed that the project is running and you may know the dates and the time, but to get in, it's not so straightforward, because you need to sign up. So you have to send us your email and the name potentially via a special contact form. It's very simple. It's on our website, tulpodcast.com/summer. And then once having your contact details, we'll send you an email back with the payment details. Payment can be made either via Revolut, or PayPal, which is instant payment, like, you just click and it's done. But to make the payment, you need the details of that. I'm sorry that I'm too crappy a programmer or a coder. I couldn't code this widget into our website. I mean, I did it with Bleak once, but then I tried the payment, didn't work. So I decided to remove it altogether, and it will be simply if you transfer the money to my nickname and it will, anyway, the result will be the same, Masha. You're laughing, what?
Very professional. Just transfer the money to my nickname.
Yeah, you send it to my nickname. Guys, as for all I know, I think, the end result will be the same. And
yeah, you'll get the money.
I'll get the money, that's the point, and then I transfer the money to Masha, of course, reduced by some fees and taxes. No, well, we are sharing this, but to be honest, that's the way. But I just wouldn't like the problem is I would like this payment system to obscure this fantastic project that is on the horizon, and basically, our philosophical questions that I wanted to say that we are going to confront, yes, and of course with our Masha, what are you, a philosopher?
No, I'm definitely not.
You're not, but you see, but and neither am I, and I guess very few of us are here. All I know is that Adrian perhaps is Adrian, who was also our guest, is a graduate of philosophy, so maybe he might be better prepared than others. But other than that, we are, let's say, ordinary people. I know that Testek on Twitter was actually contesting this. Who's an ordinary person like today? Are politicians ordinary people? By ordinary, I mean not experts in philosophy, not philosophers or thinkers of any special sort, but just ordinary, of course, intelligent people. I mean, I think it goes without saying. And then we face these questions together. We try to figure out the answer. Of course, doing what? Communicating
in English
potentially. Yeah, potentially. But if you speak Polish or any language that we know, we can still use it. But ideally in English, of course. And we are going to have fun. Masha's presence is a guarantee of that. Right?
Okay, too much pressure already.
Great. So, guys, once again, we are starting on Monday, the 17th of July. So the next Monday after the emission, of course, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. But Monday, the 17th of July at 7 p.m. If you're interested, send us the details. That is the contact. So an email and a name, and then we'll get back to you. Fine, Masha. I think that's
it's
all.
Time to introduce our guest.
Yeah, it's time to introduce our guest.
Special
exactly.
Guest.
I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to do that, because our guest today, Michał, is a very interesting person with also a brilliant career, meaning that he works for a very interesting Polish portal, but it's more than just a portal. Wszystko co najważniejsze, which translates as everything that's most important. It's a pity I didn't do the homework and I didn't check their official translation, if there is any. But it's like all the essential, I think. All that's essential, I think. It's not like the most important, all that is essential. And Michał is part of this fantastic project. And he's also an expert on, guess who, Masha? The Pope Francis. Michał wrote a book about the 10 years of his pontificate. and it's a really interesting. It's a book that's on my list, but yeah, that list is quite long. And honestly, I started blaming smartphones and all that, for the fact that I'm reading definitely too few books have been reading recently. Anyway,
so is our guest
Michał
a
is a great.
philosopher?
Our guest is. Well, you kill me. I don't know what's Michal's education, honestly. Michał is an archaeologist, as far as I can tell. So
not a philosopher, but he
he's not a
attempts
philosopher.
a very difficult question.
Yeah, but he's going to face a very difficult question. I'm not revealing what. The conversation has been pre-recorded, and we are going to run it in a moment. But anyway, we invite you to listen to this conversation that has a certain degree of abstractness. But yes, Masha, as far as I remember, you weren't too active in this conversation, which is really bad, because you have some excellent ideas, and your insights, whenever they appear, they always generate some really nice ferment. So yeah, we want more of Masha. We want more of Masha in especially in abstract and difficult conversations.
I'm sure the right amount of Masha is the key to success, because if you have, it's like ice cream, if you have too much.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we go and talk to Michał, who's joining us from the airport in Paris, I just wanted to remind you that we have a brand new, or relatively new, website, tolpodcast.com, where you can find all the essential information about our project, about this podcast. You can also get in touch with us, either if you want to be a guest or if you want to maybe leave a beautiful voicemail with your feedback, telling us, I love this, I don't like that. We need it, and we will really appreciate any kind of interaction from your side. Don't forget, the listeners on Spotify, don't forget to take part in our surveys, and you can also comment on the episode in the Spotify app. Great. So, Masha, time to welcome Michał. Hi, Michał.
Hi, Andrzej.
How are you doing?
Well, I'm quite fine, a little bit busy and a little bit tired, but it was a wonderful time, so I'm fine. And you?
All right. I'm good. Masha, you okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Everybody's fine. Good. Michał, you are joining us from the airport in Paris. You spent a couple of lovely days in France, paradoxically, right?
And we are speaking English, so that's for us of civilizations.
Exactly. Tell us a little bit about you and the languages that you speak, that you know. I know that you are living in Italy right now, right?
Yeah, well, that was a part of my studies, so that's why I was there for 9 months. And
okay, so that is in the past already.
Yeah. So currently I'm back to Poland, at least for holidays, because August hopefully we'll be getting married with my fiancée. So I need to be there. Yeah.
All right, great.
They should be there.
Great news. My brother is getting married in September, so
yeah.
All right,
okay.
Great. Weddings. All right,
weddings.
That's great. It's nice to hear that. But I would just want to ask you about your experience with languages. Tell us a bit about your English. I mean, is that part of your daily life?
Well, the funny thing is, I partly grew up in London. So I was able to learn the language, by osmosis.
Yeah.
My English, English was always the difficult language for me before I went there, because after I spent like 2 months there living with my sister and staying at her place, I realized that well, even if my grammar or vocabulary is not the best one, I was able to communicate, and that opens me. I mean,
Yeah.
when you are able to see that it is not so difficult, and you can use your words, your vocabulary, your limited understanding of grammar, and be able to communicate in different situations, it changed everything. So that's the probably the story with my learning English, with me learning English. But yeah, obviously I'm using English like daily,
All right.
mostly for my job, for my studies. But you know, it's funny because sometimes it's just difficult to use like more than one language per
Yeah.
day. Yeah. So for example,
But
after
does it happen to
Mhm.
you that you're using more than one? I mean, more than one foreign language, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, that's the thing, you know. After staying for a week in Rome,
Mhm.
in August, in autumn last year, I realized that my English skills like rapidly fall. Yeah. So well, because of not using English.
Yeah, and
And
also wait, and what about
yeah.
sorry, it's a personal
Mhm.
question, but your
Yeah.
Italian, what's the status?
Yeah, you know how it is in Facebook. It's difficult, you know,
All right.
even if the language isn't so difficult. Um, it's still a little bit like I'm still a bit confused when there is a need to use like more sophisticated Italian than the one we are using in restaurants, bars, etc. And you know, the thing is, my mom, she was always like pushing me a little bit to learn languages. So I do
Mhm.
have some background in English, of course, in French and Italian, in Russian.
Mhm.
I was learning Ukrainian Mova, for like sometimes for some time because well, a friend of mine was Ukrainian, as a Ukrainian priest, so he also like pushed me a little bit to learn Ukrainian. You know, and I believe that's the, the most important part of all of that, to be open to, you know, to learn, to listen, etc. You don't need to be perfect in any
Yeah.
language. The thing is, obviously only in French, you know, to be perfect in French to be able to communicate. But
Yeah.
no, I'm joking. But I
There is
believe
something. There's a grain of truth there.
yeah.
I want to ask you. I know. I'm just curious, you know, but I know that that you did interview the Pope, right?
Not really. Well,
Not
to
really.
be
All right.
honest, well, I spoke with him. That's true, like
Okay,
few
but it
times,
wasn't like an
but
interview.
it wasn't like a whole interview. That was like five,
Okay.
ten
Okay. Sorry.
minutes of
What
speaking. No,
language
no,
did you
that's
anyway?
fine. Yeah.
What language did you speak with the
Italian,
Pope?
Italian,
Italian. All right.
and to be honest, the Pope is the best example of not being afraid of using different languages. Like all the
Mm-hmm.
popes, you know, you remember
Mm-hmm.
John Paul
Yeah. Yeah.
II speaking like 1,000 different languages. Benedict XVI, who was even trying to speak Polish.
Yeah.
Pozdrawiam wszystkich
He had
Polaków.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, and Pope Francis, who is also trying to, you know, his Spanish, and he's definitely like a Spanish speaker, but he's communicating on daily basis Italian,
Yeah.
but also from time to time in English. And I believe that he can speak a little bit of Portuguese, Portuñol, and this kind of variation.
Mm.
So, you know, we are living in a very globalized, interconnected world, and it's really important to be able even to say thank you, goodbye, ciao, buongiorno, many different languages, even to your Uber driver, because it's
Yeah.
a case
Yeah.
like it's a matter of culture, you know, like how you behave.
But you know, it's very nice that you mentioned this because I remember that I used to have some kind of a problem
Mm-hmm.
using these really small words like buongiorno or you know merci and so on,
Mm-hmm.
because to me it was like, okay, I don't speak this language, so why should I even use, you know, these tiny little phrases, because they are
Mm-hmm.
just they've all I've got, you know. And I think this is a wrong attitude. It's if you go to a country that's I know an Italian-speaking country, basically Italy, or
and Vatican.
Yeah, or a Spanish-speaking country, and so on. I think even using the basic Buenos Dias or something like that, I think it's great. It also gives you as a user some kind of boost. Yeah.
Well, also it's always a matter of credibility, to be honest. I've been working in Panama, for example, for 3 months. It's not long. Well, it's still like a short time period, but well, all of my friends, coworkers, colleagues, they were amazed that I was at least trying to communicate with them in the basic level of Spanish. For example, can you give me a glass of water, and this kind of stuff. Obviously, in the like higher level of communication, like working papers, documents, articles, everything, it was done in English. But if you are able to speak with anyone in his own language, it's just a thing of being. It's just a matter of being more credible, more open, and it also like allows you to like create those to build those structures in your mind, structures which like opens you also for another languages. Well, this time when I was in Tocqueville, well, to be honest, my French is very bad. I must admit it. But because I spent a year in Rome, and well, I'm kind of bound with that city, so I will be there at least from time to time if Anna won't be, open to be there more often. I mean, my fiance. But the thing is,
who wouldn't like?
I will give you her number, okay? Maybe you will be able to convince her.
All right. All right. So she, sorry, jokes aside, but she must be from Silesia, if she's like that, because she wants to stay there.
She's from Krakow. She's from Krakow, but when we are speaking about the languages, she is able to speak Arabic language. Because she just submitted her PhD in Arabic studies, and basically that's something which amazed me, because Arabic language is one of the most difficult languages at all.
Yeah.
But when we were, when we are in Turkey, for example, we like a year ago we went to Istanbul. She was trying to communicate with those guys there, even with a basic Arabic language. Okay, and because of her, I learned a little bit of Arabic. I can, introduce myself. I can ask for,
Salam alaikum is all I can say, and I hear that here in the streets.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, even in Warsaw now, you have a lot of people who are here who came to Poland to work, and it's much easier to communicate with them in their language. I mean, okay, someone may say that, well, it's not fine, it's not just they should learn Polish, but I believe that, well, hey, we are not in France, we are not in England. It's not French or English. Polish is not a global language. And if those guys are working for us, with us, and they're like at least trying to learn to communicate a little bit in Polish, I can give them a little bit of good feedback saying "Duże dziękuję" in Ukrainian, or anything in Arabic or something like that. It's just a matter of being, of having an open mind.
Yeah, it must feel great for sure for them. So wait a second, Michał, I wanted to, I would like to go to the thinking out loud proper part. Of course, we've got the question, but is there something I want to ask apart from that? Masha, do you have any question to Michał before we turn to the thinking out loud?
Not really.
Proper. Not
really. I'm
right.
so well.
Michał, is there something you'd like to ask Masha?
Well, you said you spent like fantastic days in France. Is it because when you are not in France and you only know about what's happening in France, when you read the news, it doesn't seem so. How is it? First-hand experience.
Yeah, it was super weird, to be honest, because all my friends, my mom, Anya, they were sending me messages, texts, my sister also, like saying that the France is under the France is on fire, the riots are everywhere. I saw it on TV, I read the newspaper, blah, blah, blah. Not really. The thing is, I've been I've been to Iraq, I've been to Iran, I've been to many places in the Middle East, and it's always the same, like, well, I'm working with media as an editor, as a journalist, sometimes as a correspondent also, and it's always the same. The media are focused on events. Events. There is a fire, there's a bomb, there is something. But the thing is, like, it's just a moment, just one place, just like there are just few people who are like making those noises, etc. So basically, we were in the north of France, Normandy, not in Paris, not in Lyon, not in Montpellier. No, we are just in the middle of nowhere, and it was super nice, super calm, super peaceful. It was wonderful, really. People speaking with a great French manier, and they're like very posh, speaking about like great ideas, like the Tocqueville, literature, culture, everything. Of course, they were commenting what's happening on the suburbs of Paris, Lyon. But even today, when we are driving,
I totally subscribe to this. And Masha, you asked me also on WhatsApp, but I'm living also in a small town in the south of France, and it's as calm as always. So we didn't experience any riots. And I know that Marseille did experience, of course, some riots. I even bought the local newspaper, especially to learn more about what was happening. But to be honest, 100 or I think around 100 kilometers from Marseille, this is where I live. I mean, you can't hear anything, and that's why watching the evening news on the French TV felt surreal, because like, this is really happening like 100 kilometers from me. It was surreal.
100. I remember when the revolution started, the last revolution,
Maidan.
The dignity, and I live basically, it's a 40-minute walk from my place, and people phone me, what's going on, are you all right? I'm like, everything's where I am, everything is pretty calm and quiet. So 40 minutes walk.
That is also, that is, I think,
really depends where you are.
And what kind of media you consume.
Well, it's super weird. I was in Egypt during the Arab Spring. I was in Beirut during the last riots, and okay, it was the same as with the Revolution of Dignity. The people were fighting. There were riots, that everything, but it was 100 meters from me, and my part of the city was fine.
But Michał, can we? Are we actually downplaying what's happening? I mean, the weight of the events, because they are not audible 100 meters from where we sleep or where we live, or not. Because I don't know honestly how to approach this. Is it because I hear on the one side the people calling it the beginning of a civil war? On the other side, it's nothing. It's just France, right? That has these kind of waves of riots every now and then. We've got a question that we.
Yeah, well, just I just do have one answer. I asked the same question to Professor Michel, who is the sociologist, French expert on terrorism, social emotions, etc. And like, obviously he gave a very long explanation because he's a brilliant mind, but there were like two sentences which I found the most important. Anger is always the most valuable political emotion. Well, for every politician, anger is something which matters. You know, it's easy to manage the anger.
To channel, so the way you like it.
So it is always important to have some anger in society, okay? For politicians, which is obviously not a very ethical approach, but that's how it is, especially in France. And the like next sentence would explain a little bit more what had happened in past 4-5 days. So basically, there is so big inequality gap in Poland, in France, that it was just a need for those people to show themselves to make those riots. And I think that I would conclude that we should think about this kind of riots, emotions, as something which will happen in the future more like frequently, okay? Because this generational gap, the inequality gap, income gap, there won't be
they are not closing down, they are widening, these gaps.
So
probably not only in France.
My answer. Well, I think that France is, well, look on the UK, okay, on the other side of the channel. They do have the same problems, but they do have a little bit different social contract between the elites and the society. And riots over there are not as frequent as here. That's one thing. And the other thing is, they are not as brutal as here. We, trying to pushing them a little bit down, to downgrade those riots. So basically, I think it's also, and that's not my words, but Professor Vivoruka's words, France is a little bit aggressive and brutal for those who are protesting against the Republic, okay? That's it.
All right. I guess, this is the right moment, Michał, to go to the question of the day. Masha, would you be so kind and ask?
Yes, the question of the day is what is the difference between civilization and culture?
Wow.
And if you think about, in the context of the riots, are these people attacking the culture? Are they attacking or destroying civilization? What do you think? And what's the difference between the two? Because, this is really interesting, because if you're in the middle of nowhere, in the forest, and you see suddenly, some railway tracks, what you'll say is, civilization, finally, right? You won't say, culture. Railway tracks are definitely a part of civilization, but what is the difference between the two? What's also the relationship? But
well, I was thinking about that a little bit more, because, well, like in May we have a back in Rome we do had a wonderful lecture with Professor Remy Brat, exactly about that. What's the difference between civilization and culture? Sociological question, and it's not easy to answer, because well, my gosh, that's the question on which people are discussing.
I know, but my idea always is to start from language. We can talk about, for example, the European civilization and the European culture, but I don't think we can talk about Polish civilization, or can we? We can talk about Polish culture, French culture, but can we talk about Polish civilization? Is kind of strange.
The thing is, I do have, surely. I do have some background in archaeology, Indiana Jones digging in the ground, working with Indians, all this stuff. So basically, civilization, like always, for me was something magical. You know, Mayan civilization, ancient Greek civilization, Persian civilization, etc., etc. It's much, like, in my opinion, it's much larger than culture. But there is always but. As an archaeologist, I cannot understand people who are saying that, you know, that our civilization is under attack. No, it's not, because one can name the civilization as it is, like divide between different civilizations after it collapsed. Okay, because before that, I want this issue with dividing civilization and culture. Culture is, you know, the language, the tradition, the history, the way of living, food, everything. But civilization is something much more, like, much bigger. It's something greater. You know? Like, civilization is something in which you believe somehow, and which gives you the way and the purpose of living. And culture.
Oh, that is very interesting, because so you mean that civilization is actually also, I believe, immaterial.
Yeah,
because all these railway tracks, you know, skyscrapers, all that. This is what we typically think of, I guess, when you think civilization. Also, Maya civilization, you know, they had their the structures they built, you know, the calendar and certain inventions. And that we would call that a civilization, right? It was also translating on, let's say, the standard of living somehow, right? The aqueducts, you know, or something.
I would say something more. Sorry. Well, civilization is for me also like the purpose of living, about the purpose of living. So why are you here? It's a little bit metaphysical, and, you know, metaphysics is that after the enlightenment. No, I'm joking. But the thing is, well, culture is something which is also, well, it can be material, like railway and, you know, all this stuff, buildings. But civilization is something which is giving you a purpose of living. Of course, there are cultures which build civilization, but also there is, in this kind of thinking, it's implemented the purpose of your living, the way how you live. You know, if you ask me how many civilizations we do have right now on planet Earth, I would say one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
one civilization.
We are all
we are so globalized, interconnected. But we do have many cultures, many cultures, and we should be able to help them to, well,
I'm sorry if there is some inconsistency here. But you said that, you know, civilization gives you the purpose of living. So you mean like we all have the same purpose, having one civilization? Because I was more into, like, we use the same technology, whether you're in China or in Europe or in South America. You use a smartphone, you use the same tech, the same solutions, cars and planes and so on. And that is why I would say we have just one civilization today. We don't have the Chinese civilization, and, let's say, however, there are people who say
Chinese
Eastern,
culture.
Western, but but is there something like Eastern civilization and Western civilization?
No, I think that you have like a much smaller cultures and one global human civilization. And well, when I was thinking about that, I was asking myself a question: when this civilization like started, when it happened? Because definitely we do have different cultures, a lot of different cultures. But if civilization is something bigger than a culture, there is like all material and immaterial culture, but also with this metaphysical aspect and the purpose of living, I would say that we all now do have the same purpose of living here. You know, it's mostly because of the late capitalism. So that's one thing. And the second thing, it's also because of the death of metaphysics, of the thinking, like, what will be after this world, if there will be something else. And then, last but not least, it's also because technology. because that's something which like greatly changed us and our cultures during last decade. So basically, I would say that we do have a local cultures, national cultures, even the like continental cultures somehow. But if in the past we do have had like different civilizations, they're all gone. Now we do have one globalized civilization, which can be divided into different cultures. But the civilization, it's a like finally or not finally, it's a human civilization right now. Not Maya, not Arabic, not Chinese, not European, not whatever.
Which is kind of strange, in the context of the of the conflict between the USA and China, because this is being shown as a civilizational kind of clash. The same also with the global South and let's say the Western Europe, right? Because right now also in the context of immigrants and so on, we talk about some sort of an assault on our civilization, right? It's a clash of civilizations.
Well, but I would say it's more like a clash of cultures.
All right.
I would say that it's like, Samuel Huntington wrote that famous book, Clash of Civilizations. But I would say it's more like clash of cultures. And I think that we are in the process of creating a global civilization, which is not yet done. And all those, disagreements, fights, and everything are the way of, creating or making this like global human civilization, forming this like global human civilization. So I would say it's always a fight between cultures, not between civilization.
Because the civilization is pretty much the same. What do you think? Or which? It's like an egg and chicken question, but which is first, culture or civilization?
Well,
who builds?
I will take it by intuition. Yeah, I will take it by intuition. I would say that culture is before the civilizations, because civilization is like a larger thing in which you can put a lot of different stuff. But the culture gives you
culture could be very local, very
background. Yeah, exactly. And you cannot have a local civilization. So that would be my point. But it's as I said, you have there's a very, very big literature on that case, and I would go with that explanation that civilization is a little bit bigger, but culture and cultures build a civilization. For example, well, think about Mayan civilization. There are different local cultures, different local polis, like cities in Mayan Empire, Mayan world. But what we now call as what has been called now as a Mayan civilization is something which was like created from all of them. Also, the same goes with ancient Greek civilization. You have we had a lot of different polis, a lot of different thinkers, a lot of different events, material objects, etc. A lot of different local cultures, local traditions, and all of that combined together built our civilization. So I would say that
the culture, simply because culture is more local, it comes first. And if you think about two adjective, one adjective added to both of these words, advanced civilization, what is it? And I don't know if we don't really talk about advanced culture, we talk about high culture. But do you think they go together? Do you think that high culture produces advanced civilization? Or could we have a situation where civilization is really advanced, but culture is low? What do you think?
Well, that's a wonderful question, to be honest. That's a wonderful question. I would say that we can, but it's possible to have a high culture in meaning of like great music, great values, wonderful ideas, metaphysical way of thinking also, because why are we so technical in thinking of cultures and civilization? there is also something there, but we can, well, and this kind of high culture could face the problem with quite an advanced civilization, because, and that's also the difference between culture and civilization. You know, the thing is, civilization is, at least for me, a little bit too technical. You know, the way of thinking is, because it's for me, it was always for me too technical. It's like a tool, like you know, you can use it as a puzzle, as a something. But culture is always more, you know, liquid, in the sense that what exactly is culture? What's there? It's a little bit tricky. So basically, you can have, like, in my opinion, you can have like a high culture, but not very advanced civilization. And also in the opposite, you can have like a very advanced civilization, like Sumerian, but without like classically high culture. So it's
meaning that, but this culture manifests itself in what? In how we treat each other. I can think of, I don't know, the Third Reich, right? Germany during the Second World War. I think they had advanced civilization. Once again, I perceive that in terms of the technology, the tanks, the weapons, you know, the chemical industry, and so on. But at the same time, their understanding of human beings and the treatment of you know, different races and so on was horribly low. I mean, you know. So I guess it was the case of advanced civilization, low culture, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. You can have like a very advanced civilization, as Mayan civilization, but without high culture. Because, for my opinion, my personal opinion, the way how we should, you know, think about culture or cultures is like on the level of a human being. You know, Mayan culture was a terrible culture. Aztec culture was a terrible culture for human beings.
I mean the way they treated people. Yeah.
Yeah, so the same goes with ancient Roman civilization, for example.
Yes.
It was very advanced by the culture, measured on how they treat women as slaves and this kind of people. It was terrible. And from the opposite, you know, why Christianity was so, well, famous in the first ages, you know, why was it so important and so
and exactly, you know, Christianity, and because until, I guess, Christ was born, people were treated like objects, right? I mean, pretty much like a ball of meat, you know. And then after after that, you know, you had this transformation that is, you know, everyone's equal because there is something that is higher above everyone else, right? And I think this is, and it was a cultural movement. It wasn't a civilization. However, can we speak of Christian civilization? We can, of course.
No.
But what about the churches? I mean, Michał, you travel across France, you see churches, you see chapels, you see, I mean, this is, I think, what was left. And I think if the generations after us come and see that, they will see some remnants of the Christian civilization, the crosses,
Christian
chapels.
Culture. I would say that it was, and it is still, Christian culture, which was and is and will be, I hope, a part of the larger structure of civilization. Because, you know, well, you can have a civilization with different people, different, you know, way of life, different faiths, etc. So that's why I'm so opposite of speaking and thinking about, you know, Christian civilization. No,
I believe, Masha, is there even a phrase like Christian civilization? Does it make sense? Like, from the linguistic point of view?
No.
It's kind of, but I don't know if that really Christian civilization.
No, that's why. Right. No. For example, for many years you had Christendom, like Christendom, in Middle Ages. It was translated directly like a Christian culture, not Christian civilization. Christendom was like a, but saying that this part of the world is based on Christian culture, Christian values, but it's never, it was never like Christian civilization. Come on, civilization is a very technical like phrase, and as I said, you can divide or name a civilization after it collapsed.
How about
Christians are still here, Muslims are still here.
I'm just thinking, about another collocation that is, wait a second, I just need to get the context. I think it's usually used in the context of legalizing euthanasia, abortion, and so on. They talk about the civilization of death, and I wonder.
This is something. Yeah, that's super tricky, and I believe that's.
Yeah, go on. Because,
sorry, because
I just wanted to throw this. I just wanted to throw this because there is a concept. You have to agree that there is this concept of civilization of death. It's circling in the media here and there. Yeah,
and you know why is it circling in media? Because John Paul II was he invited the term of civilization of love instead of civilization of death.
All right.
And to be honest, I believe it was one of his biggest mistakes, if I can say so, because it's like civilization is like so you cannot understand civilization. It is really tough, okay? And I think it's just a media phrase which was taken. It should be like culture of love instead of culture of death. Not civilization of love, civilization of death, because, well, maybe it's my kind of materialistic approach to that. But well, for me as for a former archaeologist, it's really super tricky and super difficult to be able to divide civilizations right now. No, culture is something which is more accurate, I believe, and in that term, you can really name a civilization of love or a civilization of death, because that's exactly the way how we can define culture. You can say culture of love or culture of death, because culture is based, like in material culture, is always based on values. Okay, so that would be my answer for all of that. I think
right, and this is just this is just a catchphrase.
Linguistic mistake. Yeah.
Right. I wonder if there is a reason for it, because I will once again say that civilization to me brings to mind immediately this kind of technical industrial aspect. And if you think about, for example, euthanasia, and imagine, because what civilization brings to mind is this very organized system working like a factory, right? And I guess if you think about the civilization of death, you see these people being killed one by one in some kind of a systemic manner, and I guess this is why the civilization brings to mind, because I don't know this if there is a civilization of death, I think it would be what it brings to my mind is Holocaust, this sort of industrial approach to killing people. Sorry
well, it's super interesting and super hard, but I would stay on the ground saying that you need to divide culture and civilization, and we are using much too often terms civilization and etc.
Because I think you basically say that the concept of civilization is very big and shouldn't be used so often because it's so complex that basically reducing it to, you know, some local phenomenon is wrong. So I don't know, should we like stop using the word civilization?
No.
Because
No, the thing is, we should be more concerned about the culture. I mean, even the way how we behave with our neighbors, you know, how we are greeting them, if we are educating them, if we are nice to them, to our coworkers, than thinking about civilization and civilizations, okay? Well, let's stay on the ground. It's like on daily basis, it's much more important if you will say hello, good morning, goodbye, ciao, buongiorno, dobrego utra, or whatever else to your neighbor. And then you will be thinking about, you know, what remains after us? What kind of civilization will we, you know, offer our ancestors? Come on, it's too distant future, okay? Let's firstly think and stay on, you know, daily basis.
So the difference between culture and civilization is also about this perspective that, let's say, that civilization, that civilization is about the big things, and culture is about this local good morning and bonsoir, right?
Well, yeah, well, obviously it's
this is culture, definitely. This is definitely culture, but
okay, you do have like a material culture, like objects, like this bit here, or this cup. It's all also a part of our culture, but well,
wait.
We can always think of, yeah.
You know, if an archaeologist digs out an ancient mug, okay, well, he found a trace of the ancient civilization.
Culture
too.
An ancient culture.
Because
culture, it's always like, for example, I was working in Egypt. I was working in with few different projects over there in Egypt and Israel. And it was always about different culture. Okay, that one came from culture X, and the other one was from the culture like Z or something like that. When I was working in Poland as an archaeologist, it was from in Polish, kultura kurhanów, or the culture of like vessels, something like that. So culture, it's all about culture, not about civilization.
So you say that this mug, I mean, okay, mugs maybe haven't changed
That's a
much
part
since...
of our culture. That's a part of our culture, not our civilization. Okay.
But what about the planes that are behind you?
That's a business.
All right. But what about the planes? I mean, that is also a culture. I mean, a plane as a, you know, as
a material part of our culture. Yeah, a material part of our culture, not civilization. We didn't have like a flying civilization or something like that. No, they're a part of our culture because there are people who are not like making trips on them too often. Or there are also people who are not using and never. Well, come on, there are people who never saw a plane in their entire life. Okay, so well, it's still a part of culture, not a civilization. Civilization, it's something which is very hard to describe, and you need time to be able to do so. Okay, and that's why I said that you can divide civilization after it collapsed. That's kind of obvious for me. You know, when I was learning about different civilizations, you know, Mayan civilization, ancient Greek civilization. But for us, for young archaeologists, it was never a civilization. It was more culture. Just after this word,
after the collapse, after the collapse, they were able to label it like this. Masha, you are sitting basically. You are sitting in awe.
I
come on.
Don't even know this. I think the reason why we even use this term civilization, because first there was nothing, you know, there was, I don't know, barbarians or animals or tribes, and then civilization appeared. It's very interesting to define, you know, what is the beginning of civilization. And then because it appeared, you know, there were like islands of civilization here and there. That's why we define them, you know, Maya or Aztec or whatever.
But you know,
now
Masha, that you can
it's
also
all global
civilize
things.
people, you
So
know,
we
and there's
started
this
building
verb.
civilization, and now we build up on it. That's it. We are at this level right now, but it started, and it's continuing, you know, and within, and we have different culture. That's it. That's why we just use this word civilization very often to refer to cultures now. And that's it.
But
Yeah.
Masha, you know, there's this verb to civilize. You can,
yeah,
you
so
know,
that's how it appeared. You know, we started calling it civilization as opposed to something uncivilized, and that's it.
Yeah.
Once it started, and since then we're just building up on it, and that's it. We're developing as a civilization.
What does it mean to civilize? All right, Michał, go on.
Yeah, well, there is a very, well, thank you, Masha, for that, because it's very important to mention, you know, that in the phrase civilization, you have somehow, like, how to say it? Well, there is also a way of thinking about civilization that let you think about progress. And it's not about culture, you know, civilization has to progress, has to develop, okay? So that's why this is so, like, it is used so often, you know, because you always think, civilization, there is a progress and there's collapse. So you have make a like line, and it's impossible to do the same with culture, in my opinion. Civilization, when it started, then there is progress, develops, and then there's collapse.
Decline,
so
yes.
That's the decline. It's a very easy way of thinking, you know, while culture can go like that.
Sure,
it's much more
and
complex.
because now it's so global, then the decline and collapse will be of human civilization. There will not be, you know, European civilization, the end of European civilization, or the end of, I don't know, Eastern. There will be just the end of all of us.
But I would go, sorry.
Yeah, and there is one thing, just let me say one thing, because I strongly believe that we do have a problem with the term of civilization, but also with the term of progress and development. You know, because when you're thinking about civilization, it has to develop, you know, it has to be progressive, etc., etc. And the thing, of course, it's super fine, but the thing is also that, you know, we can find different ways of explaining what the progress is. You can think about it you know, in a very technical ways of thinking. Well, we need to build more planes, more ecological stuff, etc. But also we can think about progress on very different basis. I mean, on the basis how we as humans see each other, you know, how we see human being, you know, is it like, are we fulfilling the human purpose in here? That's a tricky thing, you know, we're thinking about civilization, progress, and development.
Yeah,
thank you, Masha,
but you
for
know,
that. It was very important.
Coming back to the rioters from the, you know, French cities, we would say that their behavior is they are not civilized, you know, because they don't behave uncivil because they don't behave like we expect them to behave, right? And this is uncivil behavior, destroying, burning down, and so on, and of course robbing shops and so on. This is uncivil.
And what does it mean, uncivil? It means basically it's barbaric.
It's barbaric. Exactly.
Yeah, and you know that the ancient Greeks became well, they were the ones who create that distinction. They do have a civilization, a culture, and they're higher. And all the people who are not behaving like them, not using their language, they're barbaric.
Yeah,
you know, and that's, I think, also kind of like how we can think about civilization, culture, rioters, etc. Because, well, on a very basic level, I think they're acting very rational, like in a very rational way. There are kind of like, there is a rational reason why they're acting in that way, because there is an anger. Okay, they are not speaking of our language. I mean, the language of behavior, acts, etc.
Yeah,
but it's not like, and of course it's aggressive. It's brutal, definitely. Or they are not irrational. There is still a bit of rationality in what they are doing, you know, because of this income gap, inequality gap, etc. they are fighting for the right somehow. Okay, I know it's a tricky way of thinking, but still,
I mean, they are not using the tool set that we have, like democracy, voting, and wait for the change, because that's the way we operate in Europe.
And they want to have it right now.
Yes.
Yeah, but having a reason for your behavior doesn't mean that it doesn't make it rational, this behavior.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. I'm just saying that there is a rational explanation, and even if they are like acting in a barbaric way, they are not uncivilized. That's it. Okay, because always the thing with riots, aggression, and brutality is very tough to explain. But I would love to talk with one or two of them and ask the question, hey, what movie have you seen lately? What kind of book did you read lately? And I'm sure that they will say, yeah, there was that movie I saw on Netflix. It's a global, way of spreading the culture and civilization. So the thing is, I believe that today, in 2023, it's very hard to divide between culture and civilization and cultural behavior, etc. There is so huge difference between past last 10 years and today that we just, well, that's only my opinion, so do not bother too much about that, but still we should be able to find, or at least to compose or to build a new different language of explaining things.
It's not like, I perfectly understand what you mean, but it's not like I'm happy about it, because it kind of reminds me of Bauman's liquid, whatever, reality, or whatever he called it, stuff. I mean, concepts lose their meaning. They kind of melt into one thing, one pulp. I don't like that. And once again, I will always, you say that the border right now between civilization and culture gets blurry, but once again, I always repeat that language is not stupid. We've got these two concepts, and they should be possible to separate and to grasp, of course, this difference. But I agree with you, Michał, that it's getting ever more blurry, as we go into this 21st century.
Yeah.
All right. We wouldn't like you to be late for your plane.
Cheers. Well, in fact, there was a lady saying that, well, passengers flying to, I know it wasn't my flight, but still, it reminds me that, I'm at the airport, because it was so.
Don't forget about that.
So nice to talk to you. It was a huge pleasure to meet you both, because it's the first time I believe we met face to face, even.
That's true. I knew you from emails, but I've never
exactly, and
to
Twitter,
you face to
obviously.
face. Yeah, and Twitter, of course.
Civilization.
Great.
So thank you very much.
Yeah. Masha, thanks a lot.
Masha, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I say thanks a lot, because because you should contribute. You should contribute more. I mean, you should take these turns, and basically let me.
Usually it's
less.
you who hogs the conversation, but today there were two of you, so I was like, okay.
In Italian you have this very, very nice word which is called chiacchierone. And chiacchierone in Italian means the person who speaks a lot, and I like it. So I believe that you
what is the word again?
Have a chiacchierone.
Chiacchierone. Oh, it even sounds, sounds good.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe that's the case. It's sometimes good to have one chiacchierone in your room.
Right, Michał, I hope that the thoughts that were spoken out loud here will basically be like seeds, and they will grow. I'm pretty sure that they will grow in our minds, in our listeners' minds as well.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody for listening to this conversation. Masha, it's over to you now.
Oh. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us till the end. And this was another episode of the Thinking Out Loud podcast. Stay tuned for the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.